Deep within the amber glow of a fading memory lies a revelation that has the power to change your entire future. We revisit the turning points of life to find the lessons that still matter in the modern world. Subscribe today and rediscover the beauty of the past.
The call came on a Wednesday. Not the call I'd been dreading for 14 months, the one about my daughter, but a different one. A smaller one. The kind that changes everything anyway. My son-in-law's voice was tight on the line. Not the voice of a man asking for help. The voice of a man who had already decided you would say yes. Dr. Harlan. He still called me that. Even after 9 years. Never Dad, never Walter. Always Dr. Harlan. Like the title was a wall between us. I need someone to take Lily for the week. The hospital in Denver is running a new trial for patients with Rebecca's condition. I leave Thursday morning. I set down my coffee. Rebecca. My daughter. 14 months in that room with the beeping machines and the tube in her throat and the smell of antiseptic that I could never quite wash out of my memory no matter how many times I showered after visiting. Of course, I said. I'll be there at 7. He hung up before I could ask anything. He always hung up before I could ask anything. My granddaughter was 8 years old. I had not seen her in 4 months. My son-in-law had been restricting visits since the accident. Always a reason. Always something. Lily has school. Lily has a cold. Lily's schedule is disrupted enough. I had stopped pushing because my lawyer told me to stop pushing. That conflict with him would hurt me in court if it ever came to that. 4 months. I pulled into his driveway at 7 sharp Thursday morning. The house looked the way it had been looking for over a year. Lawn overgrown at the edges. One gutter hanging loose. A child's bicycle rusting beside the front steps with flat tires. The bicycle had been there since last spring. My son-in-law opened the door with his coat already on and a roller bag in his hand. She's in the kitchen. There's a list on the counter. She has school Friday. Her backpack's by the door. He was already moving toward his car. I'll be back Sunday. Does she have any? She's fine. She's not a baby. The car door shut. He backed out without looking at me. I stood on the porch for a moment. 31 years as an emergency medicine physician will teach you to read a situation the second you walk in the room. I walked into that kitchen and read it immediately. Lily sat at the kitchen table with a bowl of dry cereal in front of her. No milk. She was still in her pajamas, hair unbrushed, a worksheet spread beside the bowl with pencil marks erased. So many times the paper was nearly worn through. She looked up when she heard me. I almost didn't recognize her. Not because she looked so different, because she looked so careful. The way she looked at me was not the way a child looks at a grandparent she loves. It was the way a child looks at someone she is trying very quickly to assess. Safe or not safe. That assessment. At 8 years old. On my granddaughter's face. Grandpa. Her voice came out smaller than I remembered. Hey, sweetheart. I crossed the kitchen, crouched down beside her chair. You eating that cereal dry? She glanced toward the door where her father had been standing. Then back at me. We're out of milk. Well. I looked at the bowl. The cereal was stale. I could tell just from the texture of the pieces sitting there. I think we can fix that. You want to come to the store with me? She looked at the worksheet. I have to finish this first. What is it? Multiplication. I got 3 wrong last night, so I have to do the whole sheet again. I looked at the paper. She had done it again. All 25 problems. Tiny pencil marks. Some of them erased 4 or 5 times. Can I see? She handed it to me slowly, like she was expecting me to confirm she was wrong. I scanned the problems. She had gotten all 25 correct. I looked at the erasures. She had erased correct answers and redone them out of anxiety, not because they were wrong. Lily, these are all right. She frowned. All of them? Every single one. I set the paper down. Where did you get the idea 3 were wrong? Her eyes went somewhere else for a second. Somewhere I recognized. The somewhere children go when they are deciding how much to tell you. Dad checked it last night. He said I was careless, so I had to do it again this morning before school. I looked at her small hands, at the eraser marks on her fingers. at the careful, cautious face she was wearing like a coat. "How about this?" I said. "You get dressed, we go get milk and eggs, I make you a proper breakfast, and then we go to school. Sound good?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then something in her face softened just slightly, just for a second. "Okay." In the car, she sat very straight in the back seat. I watched her in the rearview mirror. She had Rebecca's eyes, that pale gray that caught light in a particular way, like water in winter. But Rebecca's eyes had always been moving, always curious, always looking for the next interesting thing in the room. Lily's eyes were quiet, too quiet for 8 years old. "Grandpa," she said, somewhere between the house and the store. "Yeah, sweetheart. Do you have food at your house?" I kept my eyes on the road, kept my voice even. 31 years of emergency medicine teaches you to keep your voice even no matter what. "Of course I do." "You want me to cook for you this week?" "Yes, please." She said it quickly. Too quickly. Like she had been holding that answer ready. "Can we have eggs?" "We can have anything you want." She pressed her lips together, something working itself loose behind her eyes. "Dad says I ask for too much." I tightened my hands on the steering wheel. Let the silence breathe. "What do you usually have for dinner?" A pause. "It depends." "Depends on what?" She watched the road go by outside her window for a long moment. "On how Dad's day went." We ate eggs and toast at my kitchen table. She ate 3 servings. She was methodical about it, not the frantic eating of a child who had been starved, but the focused, purposeful eating of a child who had learned not to waste what was in front of her. She did not leave a single crumb. She looked up twice while eating to check the expression on my face, the way an animal checks its surroundings between bites. I had been an ER physician for 31 years. I had treated children brought in by parents who had hurt them. I knew the signs. Not just the physical ones, the particular stillness, the hypervigilance. The way abused children are always slightly more alert than children should have to be, scanning exits and reading adult moods the way other kids read picture books. I watched my granddaughter eat her eggs. After dinner, she asked if she could do her homework at my kitchen table. I said of course. She pulled out a reading worksheet, a math worksheet, and a spelling list. Then she pulled out a small spiral notebook I hadn't noticed, covered in stickers that were old and peeling. She opened it to the middle and I caught a glimpse, a handwritten list, tiny, careful printing before she angled it away from me. "What's that one?" I asked. She hesitated. "My list." "A list of what?" She studied the tabletop. "Things I have to do right. So Dad doesn't." She stopped, corrected herself. "So I don't make mistakes." I sat down across from her. I did not reach for the notebook. I did not push. "Can I hear a few things on the list?" She looked at me for a long time. Then she read in a quiet voice. "Don't leave shoes in the hallway. Don't pour my own juice. Don't talk during the news. Don't call Mom's hospital without asking." She turned a page. "Finish dinner without making faces. Don't cry if I miss Mom because it bothers Dad. Don't ask about school friends coming over." She closed the notebook. "There are more." My throat felt like something had been packed into it. "How long have you been keeping this list?" "Since November." She tilted her head slightly, calculating. 14 months ago. Right when Mom I thought if I was better, things would go back. She said it the way a child says the sky is blue. Pure matter of fact. It didn't really work. That night after she went to sleep, I sat at my desk. Not at my medical books. At my laptop, looking at a screen. Not really seeing it. Lily's words cycling through my head. "Don't cry if I miss Mom because it bothers Dad." I picked up my phone and called my brother Dennis. He answered on the second ring, which meant he hadn't been asleep. "Denny, it's Walter." "Walt, how's Lily doing?" "That's what I'm calling about." I paused. "I think Marcus is hurting her." Silence on the line. Then, "Hurting her how?" "Not the way you're picturing. Not hitting. Control. Isolation. He's making her maintain a list of rules to earn basic things. She hasn't had a friend in the house since before Rebecca's accident. She eats whatever he decides she gets to eat. I stopped. She told me she isn't allowed to cry about her mother. Walt. Dennis's voice changed. He was a family court attorney. He had been for 22 years. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out, I told him. All of it. The dry cereal and the flat-tired bicycle and the erased correct homework and the notebook. Dennis listened without interrupting, which was something he almost never did. I need you to start documenting, he said when I finished. Everything. Dates, times, her exact words, photos, if it's relevant. Keep her notebook if you can without her knowing it's missing. She carries it everywhere. Then photograph the pages. Tonight, if possible. He paused. Walt, I have to tell you something, and I need you to hear it without getting your blood up. Tell me. Marcus's mother called me 2 months ago. Patricia Hale. She wanted to discuss Lily's custodial future in the event things changed. I sat very still. She called you. She was fishing. I told her I wasn't appropriate counsel for that conversation, and I didn't call you because I didn't want to upset you over a phone call that might mean nothing. Another pause. It might mean something now. I already knew who Patricia Hale was. I had known her for 9 years. Since the first Christmas Rebecca brought Marcus home. A woman who wore her wealth the way other women wore perfume. You noticed it before she even spoke. She had looked at my daughter the way people look at furniture that does not match the room. I photographed every page of Lily's notebook while she slept. Then I sat at my kitchen table and opened a document on my laptop and started typing. Everything I remembered. Everything Lily had said. Every detail I could pull from the last 24 hours with the precision a 31-year career had given me, patient, methodical, clinical, when my hands wanted to shake. Friday morning, Lily came downstairs and stopped in the kitchen doorway. Smelled the air. Is that pancakes? Blueberry. Sit down. She sat. Watched me cook with the same careful expression she'd had the day before. I slid a plate in front of her. She picked up her fork slowly, then put it back down. Grandpa, am I allowed to have syrup? The spatula was in my hand. I set it on the counter, turned to face her. You're always allowed to have syrup at my house. Anything in this kitchen is yours. Anytime, for any reason. Do you understand me? She looked at the table. Her jaw worked once, the way Rebecca's jaw used to work when she was trying not to cry in a way she was proud of. Dad says sugar in the morning makes kids unfocused. Lily. Look at me. She looked up. Those gray eyes. Rebecca's eyes. When you're at my house, you eat what you want, when you want. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to ask, okay? She nodded. One small nod. Her hand reached for the syrup. I turned back to the stove so she wouldn't see my face. The school called me at noon on Friday. I was not expecting a call from the school. I had dropped her off, signed the visitor sheet, told them I was her grandfather, and she was staying with me for the week. The voice on the phone belonged to a woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Okafor. Lily's second-grade teacher from last year, now a third-grade teacher. Mr. I'm sorry. Dr. Hale. Whitmore. Lily's grandfather. Walter Whitmore. Dr. Whitmore. I'm glad you called in this morning. I've been wanting to speak with someone about Lily for several months. Her father doesn't make himself very available. I held the phone tighter. Tell me what you've noticed. She told me. Lily ate her entire lunch every day, including other kids' leftovers when offered. Lily had stopped talking about her mother in September, abruptly, like a light switch. Lily had no friends in her class because she was not allowed playdates and had stopped being invited to parties because she never came. Lily flinched in November, when Mrs. Okafor raised her voice at another student across the room. She's a brilliant child, Mrs. Okafor said, and the way she said it made it sound like grief. She tests in the top 5% of her grade, but she's been turning in incomplete assignments because she erases her work until it's gone. She'll turn in a page that's half blank because she erased her own correct answers. I've seen that, I said. I mentioned it to the counselor in October. The counselor called Mr. Hale and he said Lily was going through a difficult time with her mother's hospitalization and he was handling it at home. A pause. I should have pushed harder. Would you be willing to put what you've told me in writing? A brief silence. Yes. Absolutely yes. I hung up, stood in my kitchen, looked at the window over the sink where the afternoon light was coming through, and thought about the word clinical and how it was a lie you told yourself. 31 years of emergency medicine and I had never once managed to be purely clinical about a child. I had just learned to keep my voice even while I wasn't. I called Dennis. I need to move faster than I thought. How fast? She erases her own correct homework out of anxiety. Her teacher's been watching for months. The school counselor called Marcus and he shut it down. I paused. If he comes back Sunday and takes her home, and I haven't done anything, I know. I'm already looking at emergency temporary custody. Walt, I need you to understand what that means. It means war. It means Marcus comes home from Denver, and his daughter isn't there and he knows you did it. I know what it means. It also means Patricia Hale finds out. And she's been waiting for an opening like this. I looked at the blueberry syrup still on the table from breakfast. I know about Patricia. How much do you know? I know she wants Lily. I know she's never liked Rebecca. I know she has considerably more money than I do, and she will use it. I sat down. I also know I'm an emergency physician who spent 31 years identifying medical neglect, and what I have seen this week clears every threshold I was trained to recognize. If I walk this girl back into that house on Sunday and say nothing, I'm not a grandfather anymore. I'm a witness who did nothing. Dennis was quiet for a moment. I'll file Monday morning. Saturday. I took Lily to the park. She ran. Not the careful, watchful moving she'd been doing all week, but actual running, the unguarded running of a child who had temporarily forgotten to monitor herself. She went down the slide 4 times. She laughed, a real laugh, sudden and surprised sounding, like she had startled herself with it. I took a photo on my phone. Not as evidence, as proof that it was still in there, that the child she was supposed to be was still somewhere underneath the careful, rule-keeping, erasing version. On the drive home, she fell asleep in the back seat. I drove slowly. Let her sleep. Dennis filed for emergency temporary custody Monday morning. Marcus's car pulled into my driveway at noon. I watched him through the window before I opened the door. He looked like a man who had not slept on the flight home. He looked like a man who was afraid, which was not the emotion I had been bracing for. I had braced for anger. Fear was more complicated. I opened the door before he could knock. Where is she? He kept his voice low. Lily was upstairs. She's fine. She's reading. You had no right. I had every right. I'm her grandfather, and she is being harmed in your care. His face changed. Something moved behind his eyes, not denial, not the reflexive anger of a man who believes he is innocent. Something else. Something that looked like a man hearing a verdict he has been expecting. She's not being harmed. She's being raised. There's a difference. She keeps a list, I said. Rules she has to follow to earn meals. She isn't allowed to cry about her mother. She erases correct homework out of anxiety. Her teacher, don't talk to me about her teacher. Her teacher doesn't know anything about Marcus. I kept my voice the way I kept it in trauma bays. Level. Deliberate. I know you're drowning. I know what the last 14 months have cost you. I know Rebecca's medical bills are. His face went hard. Don't. I'm not using it against you. I'm telling you that I see it. But Lily is 8 years old and she is suffering, and the question is not whether you're a bad person. The question is whether you want to get her help or whether you want to fight me. He stood in my doorway for a long moment. His jaw tightened. He looked past me toward the stairs. Then he looked back at me. And the anger was still there, but something else was there too, something exhausted and raw and human. I didn't mean to become. He stopped. Started again. She looks at me sometimes. The way she looks at me. His voice broke slightly. He caught it. She shouldn't look at me like that. No, I said. She shouldn't. He left without Lily. He didn't fight me for her at the door. I didn't know if that would hold. It didn't. Patricia Hale arrived on a Tuesday. Not by phone. Not by lawyer's letter. In person. A silver car in my driveway. And the kind of knock that doesn't sound like a question. She was 67. Immaculately put together. The kind of woman who projected competence the way a lighthouse projects light. You couldn't not see it. Walter. She didn't offer her hand. We should talk about Lily's arrangements. Patricia. I don't believe we have an appointment. This doesn't require an appointment. It requires two adults being realistic. She walked past me into my living room without being invited. Sat in my reading chair like she owned it. Marcus isn't equipped to care for Lily right now. That's obvious. You're 63 and alone. And with respect, a man of your age and health. My health is fine. Your hip replacement was 18 months ago. I looked at her steadily. You've been thorough. I'm always thorough. She opened her briefcase, set a folder on my coffee table. I am prepared to file for guardianship of Lily. I have the means to provide her a stable home, excellent schooling, therapeutic support, financial security that neither you nor my son can offer right now. And I have an attorney who is very good. I have an attorney too, Victor Pell. She said the name with the slight smile of a woman who has played chess long enough to know exactly what pieces are on the other side of the board. He's handled 2 guardianship cases in family court. Mine has handled 46. She closed the briefcase. I'm not here to threaten you, Walter. I'm here to make an offer. Stand down. Let me take Lily. You can have visitation, generous visitation. I'll put it in writing. But fighting me in court will drain whatever savings you have. Take 18 months of Lily's life. And the outcome, I said, will be determined by what is best for my granddaughter. Not by who has more money. She held my gaze for a moment. Then she stood. I hope you believe that. Truly. She left. I stood in my living room and did not move for 5 minutes. Then I went upstairs and knocked on Lily's door. Yeah? You okay in there? Yeah. Grandpa, can I have a snack? And just like that, the fear sitting in my chest rearranged itself into something else, something harder and quieter. Coming right up, I said. Dennis and I sat at my kitchen table that night with every document spread between us. Mrs. Okafor's written statement. The school attendance records showing Lily had missed 14 days in the fall without medical documentation. The photo of the notebook pages. My own typed documentation. 31 days of observations formatted with the same clinical precision I had used for 3 decades of patient charts. Lily's pediatric growth chart, she was in the 2nd percentile for weight, a drop from the 40th percentile 2 years ago. This is strong, Dennis said. Patricia has 46 cases. Patricia doesn't have a growth chart showing a child who dropped 38 percentile points in 2 years. She doesn't have a teacher willing to testify. She doesn't have a retired ER physician with 31 years of pediatric abuse identification on his CV. He looked at me over his reading glasses. And she doesn't have a relationship with the child. You do. That matters more than money in family court. Does it really? He looked at me steadily. It does when the judge can see it. Our job is to make sure she can. The hearing was November 14th. Courtroom 7B in the Hennepin County Family Court building smelled like old carpet and recycled air. I sat next to Dennis at the petitioner's table. Lily with a court-appointed guardian ad litem 2 rows behind us. Across the aisle, Marcus with his lawyer. At a separate table, Patricia and Victor Pell, whose suit probably cost more than my car. Judge Carol Svensson was 61, silver-haired, with the particular stillness of someone who had heard every kind of human story and stopped being surprised by any of them. Patricia's attorney went first. He presented the case the way I had been expecting: my age, my hip replacement, my solitary income, my lack of experience as a primary caregiver. He presented Patricia's assets the way people present large numbers, slowly, to let them accumulate. He characterized my filing for emergency custody as reactive, emotionally driven, the action of a grieving father confusing love with judgment. Dennis stood. He was not theatrical about it. He didn't need to be. Your Honor, my client is not here to discuss his assets. He is here to discuss a child. He set the growth chart on the evidence table. Lily Hale, age 8, was in the 40th weight percentile for her age group 2 years ago. She is currently in the 2nd. The pediatrician's records show no diagnosed illness, no metabolic condition, no medical explanation for this decline. He set Mrs. Okafor's statement beside it. Lily's teacher of 2 years describes a child who hoards food, flinches at sudden movement, and erases correct homework until the paper is worn through. Not because she doesn't know the answers, because she has been conditioned to believe her answers are wrong. He set the photographed notebook pages down. This is a list maintained by an 8-year-old child of rules she must follow in her own home to avoid punishment. Don't cry about mom. Don't ask for food. Don't call the hospital without permission. He paused. Patricia Hale has financial resources. She also met her granddaughter 11 times in 8 years, by her own attorney's accounting. Walter Whitmore has been Lily's grandfather for her entire life. He is the adult she ran to when she was afraid. He is the adult she asked for food. He is the adult to whom she showed the list. Dennis gathered his papers. The question before this court is not who has more money. It is who this child trusts. Mrs. Okafor testified. She was steady and specific, and she did not soften anything. When Victor Pell cross-examined her and suggested she was extrapolating, she looked at him with the particular patience of a woman who had spent 2 decades watching children and said, "I've been a teacher for 22 years. I know what a hungry child looks like. I know what a frightened child looks like." Lily is both, Lily's guardian ad litem testified. She had met with Lily 3 times privately. She presented her assessment in measured clinical language, and even measured clinical language sounded devastating when it described an 8-year-old's responses to basic questions about home and safety and meals. Marcus testified. His lawyer handled it carefully, framing everything as a father overwhelmed by grief, doing his best, loving his daughter even when he failed her. He was not wrong about any of it. He had been overwhelmed. He had been failing. Both things were true at the same time. Dennis cross-examined. Mr. Hale, you established rules in your home regarding your daughter's meals. Is that accurate? I wanted structure. She needed, did your daughter have to earn meals in your home? A long pause. She had to show responsibility before, Mr. Hale. Did your daughter have to earn meals in your home? Yes or no? Marcus's hands were on the table. His knuckles went white. Yes. And if she failed to meet your standards of responsibility on a given day, she did not receive a full meal. It wasn't I wasn't trying to. Mr. Hale. Yes. His voice was barely audible. Yes. Lily testified in closed session with the guardian ad litem and the child psychologist. Dennis and I waited in the hallway. I sat on a wooden bench and did not move. Dennis sat next to me and did not try to fill the silence, which was the most useful thing he could have done. After 40 minutes, the door opened. The psychologist came out first. She did not look at either of us. I didn't need her to. I had been reading rooms for 31 years. Judge Svensson took 2 days to deliberate. She called us back Friday morning. I have reviewed all testimony and documentation in the matter of Lily Marie Hale. She set her reading glasses on the bench. She had the manner of someone who had decided something clearly and was going to say it clearly. The evidence in this case is not ambiguous. This child has been subjected to a systematic pattern of psychological and nutritional control that has caused measurable harm. The growth data alone warrants immediate intervention. The behavioral documentation provided by multiple witnesses who observed Lily independently, without coordination, and reached consistent conclusions, this court finds it compelling. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Hale, this court does not find that you are a malicious parent. It finds that you are a parent in crisis, who allowed that crisis to be borne by a child who had no capacity to carry it. That is not the same as evil. It is, however, abuse. and it cannot continue. Marcus sat very still. Mr. Hale, I am suspending your parental rights pending a complete psychological evaluation and minimum 6 months of therapeutic intervention. At that point, this court will consider supervised visitation. She turned to Patricia. Mrs. Hale, your motion for guardianship is denied. You have demonstrated financial resources and no meaningful relationship with the child. Those are not equivalent qualifications. She turned to me. Dr. Whitmore, I am granting you primary custody of Lily Marie Hale. I put my hand over my mouth. I don't know why. It was not what I had intended to do. Dennis put his hand on my shoulder. Outside the courthouse, the November air was sharp and cold, the kind of cold that clarifies everything. Dennis stood beside me while I found my bearings. Across the steps, I could see Marcus sitting alone on a bench, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, his face in his hands. Patricia's silver car was already gone. I stood there and looked at him for a moment. The man my daughter had loved. The man who had spent 14 months drowning and taken his 8-year-old daughter down with him. I walked past him toward the parking garage. Then I stopped. I don't know what made me stop. Maybe 31 years of emergency medicine, which teaches you that the person who caused the harm is sometimes also a person who is bleeding. Maybe Rebecca. Maybe the look on Lily's face at my kitchen table that first morning when she couldn't believe she was being offered syrup. Marcus. He looked up. His eyes were red. Do the work, I said. Not for visitation. For her. Do it so she can look at you someday and see something other than what she sees right now. I paused. Rebecca chose you. There was a reason she chose you. Don't make her wrong. He looked at me for a long moment, nodded once, looked back at the ground. I kept walking. Lily moved in on a Saturday. She had 2 bags and a backpack. The backpack had a small tear in the strap that had been repaired badly with packing tape. I made a note to get her a new one. The first week, she still set the table with exaggerated carefulness plates aligned perfectly. Silverware exactly parallel, like she was presenting evidence that she had done it right. She still checked my face when she poured her own juice. She still woke up twice the first night, and both times I was already in the hallway. The second week, she left her shoes in the hall. She didn't notice she'd done it. I noticed, and I left them exactly where they were. By the third week, she was drawing at my kitchen table the way children are supposed to draw without plan, without purpose. Just covering paper with color, because color was satisfying. She drew a house that had 3 windows and a dog in the yard. We did not have a dog. Is that your house? I asked. She looked at the drawing thoughtfully. It's the house in my head. She picked up a yellow crayon, added a sun. Grandpa, can I get a dog? I sat down across from her. She was still drawing, not looking at me. The sun getting bigger, rays spiking out in all directions. 8 years old, drawing suns with too many rays the way children have always drawn them, the way no actual sun looks and every child's sun does. I thought about the dry cereal, the erased homework, the list. Don't cry if I miss Mom. We can talk about a dog, I said. She looked up. Not the careful assessing look from that first morning. Something warmer. Something that had permission in it. My phone sat on the counter behind me. I had a message from Dennis paperwork for the permanent custody filing. A message from Mrs. Okafor, asking how Lily was settling. A message from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Marcus, sent at 2 in the morning. I started therapy, 3 times a week. I thought you should know. I had not yet decided what to do with that message. That evening, Lily went to bed at 8:30 without being told. I checked on her at 9 and she was already asleep, one arm under her pillow, face relaxed in a way it hadn't been that first week. I stood in the doorway for a moment. Downstairs, I poured a small amount of whiskey and sat in the living room without turning on the television. The photograph of Rebecca was on the shelf. Taken 3 years ago, before the accident, at a camping trip in the Boundary Waters windburned, laughing, holding up a fish she'd caught that was not impressive at all but that she was extremely proud of. I looked at her for a long time. She's at my house, I told her in my head. She's safe. She had syrup this morning, and she drew a sun with 12 rays, and she asked me about a dog. The house was quiet. Upstairs, my granddaughter slept without nightmares for the first time all week. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark for a little while. Outside, the first snow of the season had started just a dusting, just enough to cover the yard in something clean. Tomorrow would be harder than tonight. There would be more forms, more therapy appointments, more nights she woke up, and more mornings she erased correct answers out of old habit. There would be a court-mandated review in 6 months. And after that, another one, and the work would be long and unglamorous and nothing like winning. But tonight, snow on the yard, and my granddaughter asleep upstairs. Tonight, that was everything.